It started with the stench. One minute my fields were covered in neon tents, kids roasting marshmallows, music blasting like it was some kind of county fair, and the next, a foul tide of sewage came rushing across the pasture. Tents collapsed in the muck, campfires hissed and died, and the whole place turned into a nightmare carnival. Children screamed, adults slipped and cursed, and right in the middle of it stood Karen shrieking as her designer sneakers sank deeper into the brown mess. I didn't flinch. I didn't apologize. Because this wasn't an accident. It was justice. But to understand how I ended up weaponizing my own farm against the HOA, you need to know where this all started. My name's Daniel Cooper, and I was born on that land. My earliest memories are of waking to the rooster's crow, running barefoot through the dew, and trailing behind my father as he fixed fences or tinkered with the irrigation pump. My grandfather carved those fields out of wild brush after World War II, hauling stone by hand to build the walls that still stand. To outsiders, it's just a few dozen acres of grass and an old red barn. To me, it's family history written in soil. Every fence post was hammered with sweat, every row of hay cut with pride. My dad always said, "A man's land is like his skin." When someone trespasses, you feel it in your bones. And I felt it every time the HOA inched closer. At first it was little things. They paved a road a few feet too far past the boundary. They put up a sign advertising community walking trails right at my fence line. Sloppy planning, I thought. Harmless. I let it slide. Who in their right mind would think farmland belonged to a suburban HOA? Then, Karen showed up. If you've never met her type, let me paint a picture. Late 50s, blonde bob, pastel cardigan clipboard, glued to her hand. She became HOA president, not because she was kind or smart, but because she was loud enough to make everyone else back down. She strutted around the neighborhood like it was her personal kingdom. And when she looked at my farm, she didn't see history, she saw wasted potential. Tennis courts, gazebos, a community recreation zone. That's how she described it to my face, sipping sparkling water on her porch like a queen. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. The day I found a neon green tent pitched in the middle of my pasture, smoke rising from a portable stove, I knew Karen's little fantasy had crossed into reality. I asked the family what they thought they were doing, and they smiled. Karen told us this was the new community campsite. My blood ran cold. I stormed straight to her house. She opened the door with that smug grin and said, "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just a little camping. You should be honored." Honored, as if strangers trampling my fields, leaving trash and lighting fires near my barn was some kind of privilege. When I told her it was private property, she leaned in and whispered, "You can't stop progress. The HOA has spoken." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just nosy neighbors. This was a land grab in pastel colors. Soon, more tents appeared. Cars parked in my fields, crushing the crops I'd worked months to grow. Kids chased my chickens like it was a petting zoo. Beer cans filled the ditches. Every time I complained, the answer was the same. Karen said, "It's fine." And there she was, marching around with her clipboard and whistle barking orders like a camp director. I tried to handle it the right way. I went to an HOA meeting just to see if reason still existed. Normally, those meetings were boring debates about mailbox heights or lawn decorations. That night, Karen had a show prepared. She paced at the podium, voice dripping with self-importance. Our community thrives on shared values, but we're missing shared experiences. I propose a community campsite, and with a theatrical sweep of her pen, she circled my farm on the map. Applause broke out. Real applause, like she'd just cured cancer. I stood up, slammed my palm on the table, and said, "That's my land, private land. You can't just take it." Karen laughed. "Oh, don't be so territorial. Property lines are flexible. Besides, you're barely using it. Why should one man hoard all that space hoard?" That was the word she used, as if generations of sweat and sacrifice were nothing but selfishness. I left that meeting with my fists clenched and the sound of applause ringing in my ears. They didn't see me as a neighbor anymore. I was an obstacle. The invasion exploded after that. Flyers appeared in mailboxes, grand opening HOA family campground. The morning it began, my driveway was clogged with SUVs and minivans, families hauling coolers and tents like it was Disney World. They hammered stakes into my pasture, started fire pits with scrap wood, blasted music loud enough to rattle the barn. I shouted at one man to move his car off my alfalfa field, and he smirked. "Relax, dude." Karen cleared it, as if her clipboard could erase decades of deeds. I called the sheriff. The dispatcher sighed. "Is this about the HOA again? Looks like a civil dispute. We can't intervene unless someone's in danger." I went to the county office waving my deed. The clerk shrugged. "They filed paperwork for community recreation. You'll have to complain through the courts." The courts. Months of red tape while strangers trashed my farm. Even my lawyer admitted it. They muddy the waters with just enough paperwork. You'd win eventually, but it'll cost you thousands. That night, sitting on my porch, I stared at the campfires flickering across my pasture. My sanctuary had become a circus. For the first time, I thought about selling, just giving up, walking away from everything my grandfather built. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was selfish. That thought hollowed me out. But then I remembered my father's words. A man's land is like his skin, and I realized giving up wasn't an option. That's when I remembered the old sewage system under the barn. My grandfather built it decades ago, a crude drainage line that carried waste out to a pond. It was ugly, yes, but functional. And suddenly it was an idea. If Karen wanted a community campsite, I'd show her exactly what kind of campsite my land could provide. The day of the HOA festival, they went all out. A stage bounce houses barbecues, even a band tuning up in my field. Karen pranced around in a yellow sundress with a glitter sash that said Camp Director, blowing her whistle like a dictator of the outdoors. She gave a speech about unity and generosity, acting like I had donated the land. People clapped, raised their plastic cups, cheered. And I stood by the barn, hand on the old hatch, whispering, "All right, Karen, here's your unity." The first sign was the music sputtering. Then a sheen spread across the grass, slow and steady, followed by the smell. That smell hit like a brick wall. People froze, confusion turning to panic. A father grabbed his daughter and slipped in the muck. A teenager shrieked as his tent collapsed, phone still recording. The crowd scattered, screaming, gagging, slipping over each other to escape the tide of filth. And Karen. "Oh, Karen!" She shrieked louder than anyone. Her clipboard dangled useless in her hand. Sash glitter ruined mascara running down her face. She screeched, "What is this? Who did this?" as if she didn't already know. For the first time, the queen bee looked small, pathetic. The same neighbors who clapped for her a week ago now shouted accusations, fumbling for their phones to call the sheriff. Reporters showed up, cameras rolling. Clips of tents sinking in sewage went viral before the sun set. Headlines blared, "HOA festival ends in sewage nightmare." The county swooped in, citing sanitation hazards and fraudulent permits. The HOA was fined thousands. Karen tried to spin it, calling it sabotage, but no one bought it. Her board members abandoned her. At the next meeting, neighbors shouted her down. Someone taped a note to her chair. "Queen of crap." Within days, she was forced to step down as president. I didn't celebrate. I just stood at the fence watching volunteers haul away the trash, patch fences, and reseed the fields. My farm was scarred, but it was mine again. Karen had been stripped of her power, her reputation in tatters. And as I looked over the muddy ruins, I thought about the cost of justice, messy, bitter, but necessary. Because here's the truth, boundaries matter. And when someone crosses them, you either let them keep walking or you stand firm.